This is Lewis Hart for Boxing Social in association with Empire Fight Store and William Hill. Delighted to be joined with Ben Davison. Solid rounds for Royston Barney-Smith today, not sort of a 10-second knockout. So are you happy with that as you sort of assess that performance?
Yeah, obviously knockouts and quick knockouts are fantastic for building a bit of hype, but in terms of development, you can't beat, getting in as many rounds as possible. And I think that Royston was slightly guilty of looking for a big counter for a spectacular knockout, trying to keep that run going, and he went away from sort of the things that he's been working on that led to the knockouts that he had previously, and that's all experience. He's just recently turned 19 years old, so he's still a baby, but he's a potential superstar in this sport. So rounds under the lights, gain as much experience as possible. It really is invaluable.
How much, sort of when you look at it as a training point of view, how much accountability would you take for yourself that you're trying to make sure that he learns so much, where he's such a young age and he's still learning? How important is that accountability in yourself that you're doing as much as you can for him to get as much benefit to learn, like as he sort of grows as a man and sort of grows into like sort of like a adult body in a sense?
Yeah, we take full accountability. He's a good listener and he does try, and it's just about transitioning that from the gym into the ring, and that comes with experience, and sometimes that's going to happen more than others. I think tonight he was looking for another knockout, trying to force it slightly, loading up a little bit too much on one single shot, but all in all, comfortable victory, and I actually think you'll see better from Royston with guys that are actually coming to win rather than coming to spoil a little bit. That guy was coming to try and get through the rounds, and he was seasoned at it, experienced, and but again, I think that's invaluable experience for Royston to develop certain areas of his game at the same time.
I was going to say, when you look at it, and I just talked about him there about accountability of when you get outside, when you sort of, as soon as you leave the ring, where you've done wrong. That not just him, but as a training team, when you look at that, where you look like, right, as soon as we know this is where we went wrong, this is what you've done wrong, this is what we need to improve on. Is it important to have things like that?
Yeah, for sure, and we emphasise that sort of stuff. Obviously, I think more than anybody else in terms of film study and analysis and things like that. But Royston, he could come out of the ring and tell you exactly what he should have been doing. It's just a case of experiencing. Could have done a little bit more of this, could have done a little bit more of that. He would be able to articulate that and tell you that, but in the case of doing it, it's experience, and that's what he's picked up tonight.
100%. Enough sort of moving on. A couple of weeks ago, saw Leigh Wood retain his WBA title. First sort of question I wanted to ask you on that, when you look back on the decision that you made for throwing in that towel, you look back on it now, and do you sort of, you look now on a trainer from a personal point of view, you realise that that's probably a massive decision I made and one of the best that I've made in terms of like in the key moments. And now you look, even though you got abused for not abuse, but sorry, sorry, I don't know why I said abuse. Sorry, you got critiqued for it at the time. Where you look now,
You got abused.
Sorry, you got critiqued at the time. Now you look and you think that was such a good decision in the long run. Is it good to see things like that?
Yeah, we can all be experts after, though, can't we? Like, I can sit here and go, yeah, I knew exactly what was going to happen. You know what I mean? Obviously, the rematch was a risk as well, but top-level fights are a risk. I just did an interview there saying that people have lost sight of reality. Like every performance, who has had an outstanding performance every single time they've turned out? It's just unrealistic. They're humans, Leigh made a mistake and got now that I made a decision. I can't sit here and say, I knew for a fact, that was a perfect decision. I knew exactly what was going to happen in the rematch. No, it was a decision that I made. It was right this time. Thankful for it. And Leigh put on an outstanding performance to get his belt back. And obviously the whole team are absolutely ecstatic for that. And if anybody deserves that, nobody deserves that more than Leigh Wood.
Another thing I wanted to say, how, like, sort of, I don't know how to sort of word this question, but when you look at all the factors of sort of how the first fight went, the weight miss, you look at the sort of the decision making you've got to make. How important sort of is that, where you learn from not learning, but when it comes down to critical moments, you can make the best decisions that you can with sort of like where the room for error is so big. If it doesn't sort of pay off, then it looks really bad on you. But making that sort of that judgment at that time, how difficult do you find that sort of stuff?
Yeah, we was really confident. We're confident in our decisions, and we don't make hasty decisions. We go through it a lot, and the whole team, we picked Mauricio Lara against everybody's judgment because we were confident that Leigh could, the reality is they shared 19 rounds and Lara might have won 3, probably, something like that. We were confident that Leigh had Lara's number. Okay, it took 2 attempts to get it right, but we was confident throughout that. Leigh Wiley, very, very diligent in the work that he does in going through and matching up the styles and putting together scouting reports and collectively making a decision. Leigh was extremely confident in the Lara fight. He wanted it. We was confident in it in terms of a style matchup. And everybody thought we was crazy, but again, we got that right. Okay, the first fight we had, the first time, you could say we got it wrong, but overall, in the end, it might have took 2 attempts, but we got there in the end.
And another thing that is always gets said, I just sort of reflecting on the question that I asked there, where it's like the strongest people make the biggest decisions, and making big decisions like that to go ahead with the weight miss. Is that sort of on a personal level when it comes down to you as a team that it's important to have a firm stance when big decisions that need to get made, that you all agree as a team that this is what needs to be done?
Yeah, there's also a lot of information that the public don't know when it comes to things like that. And there's certain things you can't say because you might get yourself in trouble. But I was confident, even though Lara weighed in heavier, I was confident that by the time they got in the ring, Leigh Wood would be heavier. There was an agreement between the two teams that we would know what Lara's weight was the next morning. And Leigh Wood was the bigger fighter by the time the next morning come around. And I was confident that was going to be the case. That's why we was going to go ahead with the fight. It didn't come without questions and a little bit of hesitation and like I said, Lara's team were happy for us to know Lara's weight the next morning, and that was key for us as well because Leigh's safety is paramount. But at the same time, we was very confident in Leigh doing what he done when he got in there, and he's really come into his own, and every time he gets under them lights, he's put on some fantastic performances. I know he lost the first Lara fight, but even up until that, he was people were raving about his performance, and he's really coming into his own at the late stage of his career.
And is it important as a team that you all stay true to yourself and whatever the noise is, you don't give a shit about all the noise. You just need to stick to what you know.
Yeah, and I think that's what we do. I mean, sometimes it leads to criticism, like you was mentioning before, and we get that, but. I think that's important for anybody in any walk of life, that you're confident in the decisions that you make and you stick by it and you be true to yourself.
Ben Davison, well on the win tonight. Thank you for your time, mate. Really appreciate it. Thank you.